Hello, my name is Chuck Wolf. Over the years, I've worked in many different roles, including leading my own leadership consulting company since 1994. I've worked for and with some of the best companies and universities in the world, and have had the opportunity to work with government officials, military organizations, and public and private schools. I'm a leading expert and pioneer in emotional intelligence. Since 2009, I have been a volunteer hosting a radio show I created called The Emotion Roadmap: Take the Wheel and Control How You Feel. I really enjoy making a difference in people's lives. The show is on award-winning community radio station WPKN in Bridgeport, Connecticut. In recent years, Simsbury Community Television has been sharing my shows on their station and on YouTube. My sincere hope is that everyone who watches regularly will learn how to use the emotion roadmap in their own lives by listening to people who call in to get help with challenges at work, home, and in communities. To learn more, go to www.emotionroadmap.com. If you have a comment or question, email me at cjwolf@cjwolf.com. Thank you and enjoy the show.
Hey, and this is Chuck Wolf, and you're listening now to the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. Pleasure to be with you. It's a beautiful day here in downtown Bridgeport, Connecticut. We're broadcasting on 89.5 FM and WPKN.org. We're streaming. And if you are a regular listener, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. The show is on the air as part of the community strip here at WPKN at the noontime hour on the first and second Wednesdays of each month. And again, it's a pleasure to be here with you. I'm Chuck Wolf. I'm your host. And the show is designed to take you into the world of emotional intelligence. A lot of situations in life can be very impactful in terms of how you're feeling emotionally. And as I'm sure all of you who feel challenged by emotions today and have been challenged recently by maybe storms or politics or relationship issues or anything that might be complicating or challenging you in today's environment. You're looking for ways to manage how you feel. A lot of people welcome the opportunity to learn how to find ways to regulate their own internal emotions and also to help them in thinking about and influencing other people's emotions. Many of us are very often challenged by, how do I address this circumstance or situation? How do I deal with this challenge or this conflict? And if you are finding yourself having some questions, you're doubtful or uncertain about how to proceed with a particular situation that you're facing right now, the show's about helping you by using what I call an emotion roadmap. So those of you who are regular listeners, if you want to call in and you have something that you'd like to share where you're feeling somewhat confounded, uncertain, unclear how to proceed, and you feel as though it's being complicated in part by emotions, which, by the way, is often the case I find with smart people, or if really everybody, but particularly smart people, good problem solvers, excellent critical thinkers. When you're stuck, it's almost always, in my experience, when something emotional is happening inside of you. You're worried about an emotion that you're experiencing, conflicting emotions sometimes, and you're also worrying about escalating a situation with somebody perhaps that you're dealing with. And it may be more than one person. Sometimes our circumstances or situations are just internal to us. We're struggling with what choice to make. We have choices that we're facing. Should I take that new job? Should I stay where I am? Should I ask this person to marry me? Should I encourage my child to attend state college instead of a private university? So there's lots of things that we may be facing that are not always clear about what's the best and right choice. And sometimes it's confounded by the emotions we're experiencing, and we seem to be out of options, good options, or at least clear options that say, no, this is clearly the way we need to proceed. And so, again, if you might be stuck with a relationship issue, somebody at work isn't doing what they need to do, somebody at work is making it hard for you to be successful. Maybe they're jealous of your situation or of your skill set, of your position in the organization, and they're actually working to undermine you, perhaps. Or perhaps they just believe that when you have a choice to make, that you have conflicting ideas about what's the best choice. And they feel grounded in what they believe to be true, as do you. And so when the situations are occurring, whether at work or at home, and you're feeling stuck, one of the ways I found to help people to get unstuck is to simply to focus on the emotions in play. And it seems strange to say this, but when I help people by looking at how are you feeling, by asking that question, how are you feeling? And what would be ideal for you to feel in the circumstance? And if it's more than just you, it's not just an internal struggle, but it's dealing with one or two or other key people, how is he or she or they feeling? And what would be ideal for them to feel? And how do we get from what you are feeling to what would be ideal to feel? That's the concept behind calling this a roadmap, an emotion roadmap. How do I get you to move from the feelings you have currently to more compelling, more ideal feelings? And that's the sort of the concept of change management, if you will. Change management is in the workplace, it's thought about as you're in a current state, and your current state, for whatever reason, isn't as successful as you would like. And you may feel distinct pressure to change. And you don't know what to change to necessarily. But somehow, some way, whether by being helped by someone external or just on your own or with the internal people in your organization, you come up with a compelling vision of what you want to change to, a compelling vision of the future. That's similar to what I do with emotions. In change management, you think about organizationally, what do we want to change to? With an individual, I'm asking, what are you feeling and what do you want to change to? And what's your compelling vision of what would be ideal to feel? And how do you get there? And that's what the show's about. So if you're a regular listener, you know that often by having someone, perhaps one of you, to call in and share what's going on for you, I listen really closely. So I'm effective as just an active listener, trying to listen for feelings and trying to summarize your circumstance in a way that's really helpful for me to help you to deal with it, and also for anyone who's listening to learn how to use this approach in your own lives. So I ask you to tell me a bit about your circumstance and what you're facing and how you're feeling. And then if there's others, what are they feeling? And what would be ideal, again, for them to feel. And then I work through that with you. And the show is designed to help everybody who's listening to learn how to use these tools, this tool of an emotion roadmap. So often in my experience in the world of leadership coaching and leadership consulting, which is where I practice my professional practice when I'm not volunteering here at the station, I help people to do this. And obviously I do it over longer time periods than just simply a phone call. But with just a phone call, I often can help people, and again, regular listeners know this, to go from feeling somewhat hopeless about a situation they're facing, or at least confused, to feeling hopeful by the end of our conversation, and feel as though they have what I call an emotion-based plan to make life better for themselves and whoever else might be involved in their circumstance or situation. So that's the goal of the show. The goal is to be helpful to an individual caller while at the same time helping all of you who are listening to understand how you might benefit from using this emotion roadmap in your own life, making it part of what you do all the time. So I will talk to you more about that, but I do want to allow people to call in and give you plenty of time to call in. Last week when I was here, again, I'm on the first and second Wednesdays of each month, and the show was called The Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. You know, grab that wheel and create the direction you want to go in. A lot of times people I know feel like it's kind of like if you've ever played a game of cards and you feel like you got to play the cards you're dealt. Well, a lot of people think that I got to deal with the feelings I have. And that's just what is. There's no changing that. And I believe I know for sure, I have proven to myself and to others that you can actually change your feelings at times. You can't change all your feelings, but you can change feelings at times. And if you can't change feelings, sometimes you can change what you're saying to yourself about those feelings. You can change the self-narrative, the talk that you have inside your own head about what you're feeling. And then there's another way, I think, to help people to deal with challenges as well. And I call that an emotional firewall. And that's more recent, but it's the idea that sometimes when you're feeling a certain way about something where an ongoing condition exists that isn't going to change, and you want to deal differently with it, and you've tried changing the feelings and it hasn't worked, and you've tried changing the self-narrative and it hasn't worked, that sometimes another strategy is to create an emotional firewall, just like firewalls protect your computers against, viruses that trying to enter your system. You can control, to a degree, feelings, unwanted feelings that are complicating and challenging your life by establishing a firewall of sorts. Now, that's not the same as repressing feelings, but it is a way of dealing with impulsivity, if you will. And perhaps if people are interested, I'll say more about that too later on. But I would like you, again, to have the opportunity to call in. I'm on for an hour, 55 minutes, actually. It starts at 12, and at 12:55, another public announcement comes on. So I have 55 minutes to be helpful to people and for people to get help for themselves at the same time by sharing. You're helping everybody else that's listening to benefit from watching and listening and seeing how this process works. Because ultimately, in my lifetime, I've learned to help people by creating this emotion roadmap. And I hope as much as possible that the idea about an emotion roadmap that helps you to manage your own internal feelings, to regulate your emotions internally, and to help you to be more effective at influencing others' emotions in a positive win-win scenario where you're not trying to manipulate others, but simply trying to create the best possible situation for you and others. If I can help more and more people do that, I think I've made hopefully a lasting contribution, and that's important to me. I like making a meaningful difference. So if I can help you by doing that for you, you help everybody by willing to share, and everybody listening benefits from learning potentially how they can benefit from this as they listen to what it is that goes on for you. There was a famous psychologist called Harry Stack Sullivan a number of years ago who described something that a lot of people experience without knowing that a lot of people experience it, and he called it the delusion of uniqueness. Think about what those words are. Delusion. It's not real. Uniqueness. Only I experience this. Delusion of uniqueness is, I think I'm the only one experiencing this, but in fact, I'm wrong. Quite a few people experience it. So chances are that what you're going to call about when you do call and you talk to me, not that people will have the exact same situation as you, but people have often deal with the same kinds of feelings. Like, I'm worried about escalating. Well, I'm sure there's lots of people out there with situations where they're worried about escalating. Or I'm feeling anxious and I want to feel confident. You won't be alone if you're feeling anxious and want to feel confident. There's lots of people feeling that way. That's the idea of what Sullivan was saying. Sometimes it helps simply to know that we're not alone in how we're feeling about many different things. So the number to call is 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. And I started to say last week when I was here, for some reason, the phones looked different to me. And because they looked different, I wasn't able to answer the phone when people were calling. And now the phones look great. So if you want to call, and this is a good time to call because it's the beginning of the time that I'm with you, and I've got time to talk with you. Sometimes if people call and wait till the end of the show, I've got to rush through it. I don't have time to work through the process. I can offer some advice quickly, perhaps, that might be helpful, which I did last week. But I think a lot of times it's really useful to walk through the process. So you learn not only what to do in your current challenge, but you also learn something that might be useful to you for additional challenges that have to do with emotions that are always informative. I always believe emotions are informative. But what we might be feeling at a given point in time may not be the emotions that are ideal to feel for what we're facing and trying to deal with. And that's when you want to consider, how might I change my feelings? Or how might I change the narrative about what I say to myself about what I'm feeling? Okay. So again, the number to call is 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. And what you might call about is anything to do with relationships. If you're struggling with people in your home, whether it's young children, teenagers, adult children, aging parents, partners in you're struggling with your partner in your relationship, neighbors, communities, clubs you belong to, teams that you might be part of, workplace issues with people that you work for or people that work for you, people you work with. There's all kinds of circumstances all over the place in our lives where emotional challenges arise. And if you've got something where you're uncertain how to proceed, give me a call. 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. Again, I encourage you to call if you think you've got something. I would ask you not to wait, because once I start on a call, I'm alone in the studio. As volunteers, it's important that, I'm going to just be able to take one phone call at a time. And I've got my first caller. Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Who am I talking to, please?
Denise.
Hi, Denise. Thanks for calling. What can I do for you?
Hi. Well,
could you turn
I'm just going to put the other phone away so I don't have crosstalk here.
Thank you.
I'm newly retired. Mm-hmm. I have an adult child who is 21 years old. He has a history of ADHD. He is seeing a counselor more for like, what do you want to do with your life, that sort of thing. Uh-huh. Unbeknownst, I had found out that he was doing THC, which is legal in this state.
Right.
And in 3 times where he's had, like jonesing. So far, because we're just the 3 of us, my husband, myself, and my son, that he's been okay because we're watching everything closely. But he has not been able to do much of anything. We tried to get him into a manufacturing program through like the college and state of Connecticut. We thought it was great. He agreed and said no. He had done a vocational school in high school. He basically sits in his room day after day in a darkened room and plays video games all day and night. We've encouraged him to go to find a job. Has not really stepped out of the house in 3 years since he's graduated. Like I said, we do have him in counseling, CBT counseling, but it's still in the same spot. He did do a computer certification program that he gets certificates, so he did do that. But now it's sort of like, well, what do I do with this now? And being newly retired, I was going through getting myself, getting exercise and meditation and walking every day, eating well. And then I hit this wall where he just doesn't want to communicate. So I'm feeling very sad. I'm feeling very overwhelmed. I feel like I'd like to help this person because I love them. But, it's a tug and war.
So there's one other person that I'm curious about, because you didn't say much about your husband in this, and I'm just trying to collect some information before I respond to you, Denise. So how is your husband feeling similarly or different? Or?
He's still working. He's got a high level job. He works very hard in supporting this household, and he's more of like, okay, well, this is the issue. This is a problem. get it done. Where,
right.
So he's very aware. He's very aware of it. I don't think, he's like, okay, well, he can't do THC in the house, which I don't believe he's been doing, but it's with with going in as a family with counseling. He's like, okay, well, he needs to get a job. That's his goal is he needs to get a job. So he's aware that he's in his room, but I see it more from a kind of an emotional standpoint of like, it must be very, very sad to be in your dark room with your curtains closed doing video games. And I'm allowing this, I guess, is where I see myself coming in.
Yeah, you feel like you're enabling, sort of like the alcoholic
definitely.
syndrome. Sure.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. And THC, for those who don't know, I think most of the listeners on the station do, but THC is marijuana, and so he's using that whether in edibles or smoking or vaping or whatever he might be doing.
It was vaping.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I think I've got a sense of this. How do you think your son is feeling, though? What can you describe it?
I think he's feeling down. He's feeling down. He sees his friends either in school or at work, and he just doesn't know. He feels. I believe that he feels, and I'm only speaking from what I can see, feels lost.
Okay. And so the counseling, before I jump in and offer any ideas, is the counseling been going on for some time now, or is it fairly recent?
He was doing it like late middle school to high school. Then he stopped.
Okay.
And then I just had noticed, like we've got to get him going with He has to get going with his life, with something, and we're trying to expose him to different things. Would you like to go to school, take a certification product? I know he did the certification program, but now he's got to get a job. Problem is he hasn't been doing anything for 3 years.
Wow. Okay, that's a long time for this behavior to be going on, right?
That's a long time. And then I kind of think to myself, like get anything, get even at a grocery store, and there's nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong, that a lot of people have that job, and I see that they seem to, be productive. That's what you want to do.
Right.
But he puts up, let's talk about, there's American Job Corps that helps you with interviewing skills and resumes. And there are things out there. I think he's gotten himself in a really bad rabbit hole and doesn't know how to get out. And I, as a retired healthcare professional, I know that I know a little bit about working, work ethics, and you have to be looking and put yourself out there. And he's not even at that spot.
Okay, so has the counselor offered? Is it family counseling or just for him?
It's just for him, but she's known us for many years, so we pretty much he'll go in for 20 minutes, then I'll go in for 20 minutes, and then sometimes we'll come together, and sometimes it'll just be separate. So she's seeing both of us.
Okay. Well, I don't want to comment on a counselor's ability or inability because I'm not facing your son and trying to help you. But I will say a few things just based on what I heard. Okay, so you've got a circumstance where it seems like your husband is like concerned about this, but he's busy and he's doing something very meaningful and important, and he makes a good living at it. And so it's really important that he focus on what he's doing at work, and he can be successful there. And so that's where he's spending his time. And he's saying to you, especially since now you're retired, this is something where you need to get him out of the house and help him get a job. And so you've kind of taken this on as your challenge. Does that sound right?
Yes.
Okay. And your son has, for 3 years, for a very long time now, he's been hiding out in his room, afraid to face the world and just dealing in this virtual reality world of playing video games, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you've got some help. So you've done some things initially. Do you feel like there's any progress being made with the counselor? That's a key question, I guess.
Yes, but I'm not sure enough to like kick him in the rear to like point him in the direction of like do something, say, with his life. And that's a long journey. That's a lot of work to be done. But I think that needs to be addressed. She did mention to me that he did say, okay, no, I got these certificates. Now what do I do? So again, he shuts me off a lot because it's easier to go in his room and do video games. And if you try to broach the subject, we're going to have an explosion.
I understand. Okay, so the feelings that this is the next part of how this works is you try to create a vision of if magic could happen, how would you want to feel for yourself? In other words, what would you want to feel going forward if you were wildly successful here and changing something? What would you want to feel?
More relaxed, less guilty about him being stuck in this room, and here I'm out, doing my balance exercises. I'm going to lectures on topics that I like. I'm not just trying, I have been going out. I walk every day. I just started a drawing class, but more relaxed, more like taking a breath of a sigh of relief. Like, okay, we've got some sort of a roadmap for him. As far as me finding little different things to do, I am doing a little bit of that. I could be doing more for myself, but I see this person stuck in this room day after day. Sure.
Okay, so if the ideal feelings would be, just if I could project what I would experience, I would be happy for my son because he's found something.
Yes.
Confident that I had a plan that was helping him to be successful outside of the house, and that at peace with myself. Those would be some things I think would be things to shoot for you. Does that sound right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm writing these down because I think those are good roadmaps.
Right.
To put on the roadmap.
Okay. And then for your son, if we can, there's a couple things that maybe you can touch base with the counselor when you have the visitation with her, is how do you think he's feeling and what do you think would be ideal for him to feel, and how can you and the counselor work together to help him to feel differently? And if I'm in his shoes, I'm feeling a lack of confidence, but I'm feeling like, hey, life is not great maybe, but I feel okay because all this stuff's being done for me. And I get to hang out here and do what's comfortable, which is I isolate myself. I don't have to interact with anybody where I don't feel like I've got really good relationship skills maybe, and I just can play games and I get fed, my laundry gets done, and I got a place to sleep and a roof over my head. My parents do okay, so I don't really have to change a darn thing.
Right, exactly.
So often change happens when there's a compelling vision of the future for your son, which I don't think you can get him to have yet, but that's sort of the goal is like, what would it be like to be outside of the house, being successful at something where I feel I'm capable of actually taking care of me?
Yes.
And how do you motivate that? And the key to what I found works when I'm coaching people or counseling people is what's the motivator for them? What is the motivator? And it's not clear, by the way, with your son.
No.
Because 3 years is a very long time, and he hasn't been motivated to go out and do things on his own. So the question might be, have you ever seen any spark of interest? Because this is where you try to find what might be meaningful to him outside of the room. Has he ever expressed some interest in anything else that has struck you, whether in school?
The computer.
And he went for a certificate, right?
Well, he over this past year, because his uncle had sponsored him, had him come out. He owns a small counseling company outside the state, and he got him to meet one of the tech people, and the tech person suggested these two program certifications. So he paid. I don't know how much this cost. He wanted to pay for it, and and Ian, and he just, my son's name is Ian, just finished the certification program. So his uncle is coming out in about 2 weeks. So I'm hoping that he's also a psychologist, that he can maybe, without doing psychology on him, kind of see where he's at, what he might like to do as well, from kind of a third-party person. And his counselor, too, I see her as a third party, like she should be neutral. You know, I'm not in a neutral position with him.
Of course not. Yeah.
But she is. And I think we're getting to a head-on where it's like you have to. Where do you go from here? You've got this now, this certification. What do you want? Like you had said, what do you want to do? Where do you see yourself? What's going to motivate you? What do you want? What do you want to do? He'd actually like to fix computers, but I don't know if there's any place around here. But I have been suggesting this American service job center that is around the state that helps you, like, get your feet on the ground, and he just doesn't want to hear about it. But maybe because he's doing so much of things that he wants to do, like his gaming, that he'd have to actually do some work to get there.
So is there any ability for you to not allow him to be on the video games and, institute some kind of thing in conjunction with the counselor, maybe with your, is it your brother, his uncle?
My brother-in-law.
Brother-in-law, and with your husband.
Yes.
That everybody makes a commitment and include him in the conversation.
Okay.
That it's not something that is sustainable. When we're gone, at some point, you're going to have to be responsible for yourself. And that starts, and then you pick some date that seems reasonable to everybody. But that it is volunteering in some kind of technical shop, getting trained by Best Buy as one of the people that helps people with computers and things like that, or someplace where you can go where you pay for training. But you get trained and you start to have this, in other words, you have found something that intrigues him. But my guess, if I'm putting myself in his shoes and trying to be empathic to understand his situation, is I'm scared to death to try something.
Yes. Right? It's daunting.
I'm so afraid of failing. And that's
daunting.
Yeah. So what circumstance can he be in where the success is almost guaranteed? Where he's not being paid because, if you make lots of mistakes, then nobody's going to want to pay you. But if you're learning and you're willing to do more, you're willing to do janitorial services just to be part of the team that is working on computers, and part of the time you're there, you get to be trained on certain aspects of computer technology that allow you to be useful in a world that's only going to keep growing.
Yes. Yes.
Does that sound at all feasible?
Yes, that sounds very feasible. Do you think it's okay to say, hey, listen, we're not going to be around here all the time. You have to really start thinking of participating in your life with what you want to do, your path. And you've had plenty of time off, and now is the time to do it. I think with the help of the counselor, like you say, my husband, and my husband has joined some of the counseling sessions, but I think it's time to take the next step.
I think together, and again, if your brother-in-law has a relationship with your son, and if everyone in his life that matters, brings him in and says, out of love, we're going to say you can't continue in your room this many hours. And I think it has to start that way. Out of our love for you, we know at some point we're not here, and we want you to feel confident in your ability to take care of yourself in this world. And so here's what we're thinking. What do you think?
Yes. And then to say, you can be on the computer. We're not going to pull the plug on it, but you need to spend X number of hours on job hunting.
Yeah. I mean, I had this is an interesting, I was just sharing this with one of my daughters whose husband, when she first introduced us to the guy that she was going to marry, she said, he doesn't have a job. And I said, well, that's not great. But when I met him, what he said to me was, he said, I'm not working today, but I do have a job. I said, really? What do you mean? He said, I get up at every day at the same time in the morning, around 7 o'clock in the morning, have breakfast and get ready because I start my day at 8 o'clock looking for a job. That's my job, is to get a job.
Yes.
And I love that. I love that idea, right?
Yes.
So I think if you can help your son feel as though we're not beating you up here, we're just loving you and concerned about you and want to help you build the confidence we think you need. But you got to help us. You got to work with us. And everybody that cares about you, whether it's your brother-in-law or it's your husband and the counselor and himself, everybody comes together and has this conversation with him. And you start including him in the planning. You don't plan for him. He's got to buy into it. Otherwise, it won't work. But you have certain hours that you can do the video games, but then other hours you tell us, like, you can change the hours, but only a few hours a day. You got that. And then you've got to take on, like, my son-in-law, your job is to find a job. And find something that allows you to feel confident. And it doesn't have to start with pay. It can start as a volunteer, as an intern, as maybe it's a paid internship, maybe it's a non-paid internship, but something where you can go and you can learn the kind of skill sets that you need. And then you work with vocational people to help placement. And then if it's not a good placement, don't keep them there, because you don't want, this is a very sensitive time. You want to find somebody where there's a mentor who cares about kids like this, who, whether he's on the spectrum and neurodivergent, all those things that may apply here at some level, but somebody who's comfortable in that world, understands kids like this, and understands that it's going to take some time. It isn't going to be easy, but your son's got some skills. He's learning, passed the certificate. He wants to be in this world, and you have somebody that's going to be not only teaching them, but a cheerleader at the same time.
Yes. Thank you, Chuck. I really do greatly appreciate your insights. I've been wanting to call, and I appreciate your time.
Well, thank you so much for calling, Denise, and best of luck with it. Hope it works out.
Thank you so much.
Okay, bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Okay, folks, that's how it works. So if anybody else has got something going on, I appreciate the call, Denise. I hope it all works out for you. Again, the number is 203-336-2756. 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. So I'll give you a moment. Again, I've still got time to talk to you today. If you'd like to call in, we're at 12:36 today, and I'm here till 12:55, so I've got some time for you. If you've got something you're thinking about, please don't wait. Pick the phone up and dial 203-336-9756. Now I'll give you a moment. Okay, well, I will talk about some other topics. I always come in with some topics to talk about. But again, if you are sort of on the fence, Neil Young has a great song, it might have been, you might have got some help, but if you wait till the very end of the show, chances are I won't be able to give you the time I need to be helpful. So again, 203-336-9756, 203-336-9756. Okay, so a few other things to talk about these days. Here we go. Please turn your radio dial down. I can't hear you. Okay, thanks. This is Chuck Wolf. You're on the air. Who am I talking to, please?
This is Michael. I just want to say you were doing a great job. I'm driving right now, so I'm not going to talk to you, but just want to call in and let you know.
Oh, thank you, Michael. I really appreciate the positive feedback. Thanks a lot. And when you're not driving, I'm on the first and second Wednesdays. If you got something you want to talk about, feel free to give me a call. I'd love to talk to you.
Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye now. That was nice. Again, if you're somebody who's got something going on, 203-336-9756. Okay. Other topics to talk about, just something that you might find interesting. I have talked about this in recent times on the show. I like to be innovative and find ways to do things that no one else has done before by combining things maybe that I've learned from other people, but putting them together in and new ways to combine them in ways that are really innovative. And one of the most recent ideas I've had, and it has worked on for the last couple of years, is that emotional intelligence, for a lot of people, is simply a way of thinking about being nicer somehow to somebody. Those who listen to the show a long time know that I see it as much, much broader than that. Of course, it's always good to be nice to people. I'm a big fan of being kind to people and trying to push myself, even when I'm not feeling kind, to be kind. And I'm not always perfect, because just like the rest of all of you listening, when I feel overwhelmed or very stressed or just life is complicated for multiple reasons, I feel like it's harder. It's really harder to dig deep and be kind when I'm feeling frustrated with someone or angry about something in my life, and it comes out in a very negative way with someone else in front of me who has got nothing to do with why I'm feeling angry, and yet the anger is just boiling over and looking for an outlet. And my guess is I'm not alone in that. Like I was talking about Harry Stack Sullivan, I'm well aware that I'm not unique in that way. But I do try to be much more aware, much more conscious of when I'm feeling upset internally and how that might come out with people I might be dealing with. So I encourage you to try and understand your own emotions and your own emotional responses. It's interesting. Emotions are designed to inform us and protect us and help us survive. They're part of our evolutionary system. But sometimes what you're feeling isn't what you need to feel in a particular moment. So my thought about sharing with you how I've combined this idea of emotional intelligence with transformational change is very exciting to me. And I've talked about it a bit. So if you're a regular listener, you know that one of the things that I did was I worked really closely with a woman who owns several businesses, and she has really embraced the emotion roadmap and made it part of her life at work and at home, in her volunteer activities, in her community, with her family, with her extended family, and with all the people in the workplace, including employees, families, customers, vendors, and how the community feels about her companies. We have really focused on this idea of shared feelings across all these different groups of people. And it has been powerful and compelling in terms of the kinds of experiences that she has felt and experienced over the last several years, and how it's come into her life and made life better, more positive, and she has found this incredibly meaningful technique and tool to use in all kinds of ways. And one of the people, just randomly happened one day that someone on LinkedIn, where I'm often active. By the way, if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, you're welcome to. Again, you just look for Charles Wolfe. You'll see on my profile my picture, the Emotion Roadmap, the fact that I work with Dan Goleman and the former president of Yale, Peter Salovey. Dan, if you don't know, is like one of the major known entities in the world of emotional intelligence. Dan Goleman wrote the book in 1995, just called Emotional Intelligence, and with a subtitle about why it matters more than IQ. There's a lot that goes into that. But in any case, Dan became very famous for introducing to the world this idea of emotional intelligence as a writer. Peter Salovey, he just was 10 years president of Yale. Peter was someone who actually, working with a colleague of his, Jack Mayer, was the first two psychologists to create a peer-reviewed article that was published that announced to the world that there was something that was different than analytic or cognitive intelligence. It was emotional intelligence, and it was based on our abilities to identify, use, understand, and manage emotions. Specific kinds of abilities. Other people have written about all kinds of scenarios for what emotional intelligence means, and I think they're all doing it out of trying to be helpful. But Peter and Jack's work is really outstanding and unique, I think. But Dan has been really excellent at making the world know about emotional intelligence because his writing skills are so good, and he's also a very good speaker. I've gotten to know Dan and work with him in something called the Consortium for Research on Emotional Intelligence for Organizations. And what I've done is I've taken some of his ideas and some of Peter's ideas and other people's ideas, and someone that I used to work for years ago at Harvard Business School, many, many years ago. I worked for a fellow named Tony Athos, who was probably the most brilliant man I've ever met in my life, about organizational behavior, how organizations behave, and how individuals behave. I never met anyone that knew more about behavior and what drives behavior and how feelings and thoughts influence behavior. No one knew more than Tony, and I was lucky to be mentored by him. So I have combined Tony created the model of transformational change for this very well-established and well-known management consulting company called McKinsey & Company, made up of many, not all, but many Harvard Business School graduates. And they were looking for a model of transformational change way back in the 1980s, actually. And Tony was one of the key authors for this model. And I was his research associate when he was working on this. And so I got really, the firsthand knowledge of this model's creation, and got to teach actually the first case study in Harvard Business School using that model. Tony let me teach a case about it. So anyway, I work with that model, and I work with this emotion roadmap that I created after spending time with Peter Salve and Jack Mayer and David Caruso. And I pulled these two together. And the resulting work has been a number of benefits to this woman that I've worked with, Tamara, who is really instrumental in being so incredible in how she's implemented these concepts into her companies. And I helped her with that. And we just, through a podcast, somebody in Thailand, Sylvain Rochin, who found me on the internet and said, hey, what you're doing seems really incredible. I'd love to do a podcast with you. And that just got published today. That's why I'm talking about it. So if you're on LinkedIn and you look up Sylvain, Sylvain, Rochin, Rochon, you'll probably see the podcast, or maybe you'll just come across it anyway. Or if you connect with me, you'll probably find it. And you can connect with me. I know I'm on the air as Chuck Wolf, but my professional name, my real name's Charles J. Wolf. So you find me that way. And you get to listen to it if you like. And you hear about the benefits that have come with the work that I'm doing with Tamara over these last several years. And we're actually taking it to another level, but that's another story I'll share another time. But the concept for me was, I'll tell you a little bit about the model. But first, before I do that, I still have time to help somebody with a phone call. So if you're thinking about calling, but anything at work, anything at home, anything anywhere, that you're perhaps having some challenging situation, you find yourself in a challenging situation because you're not quite clear how to proceed, this is the time to give me a call, because I still got at least 9 minutes now to help you. 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. So give me a call if you've got something, and I'll wait a moment, because I know it's not easy to pick up the phone and ask for help with something that seems private to you, but if you can get some help, and at the same time you're helping everybody that's listening, because we walk through this together, and like the person who called me, Michael, who said, you're doing a great job. I love hearing that. But you know what it means to me? It means that he got some value from that too. And he heard me provide some value to Denise, and that was important to him. But if he's listening and you're listening, you heard some things that maybe are useful to you too. So I'm hoping that if you want to have a conversation with me, this is the time to give me a call. 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. And I'll give you a minute. Okay, well, I guess if you're okay, here we go. Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Who am I talking to, please?
Hi, my name is Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, and I've been listening, and I was wondering if you have a loved one with mental illness, when do you decide it is time to cut ties to save your own mental health?
Obviously, a very challenging question and something that you're living with, Sarah, I guess.
Yes.
Right. I guess one of the things you want to ask yourself is always, I mean, this is a key anytime that you're thinking about a relationship and you have friends or family members that are in relationships where there's some challenges. The key question, I guess, you have to ask is, are you better with or without the person, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess as long as you're feeling like you're better with and that your mental health is, you're able to maintain it, I think you're probably okay staying with the person. At the point where you begin to feel like it's slipping and your own mental health is slipping, then a couple things could happen. And I'll just ask you what you're already thinking about doing before I suggest them, because some are obvious and you may have already tried them. So what are you thinking about doing to try and get some help with this?
Well, we both have our own therapists.
Okay.
He's getting medical attention to make sure there's not, this isn't a result of a brain injury that he previously sustained.
Okay.
But it's very challenging, even with, medical intervention and medication. It's still very volatile at times.
So since you're seeing a therapist, I'm guessing that you've had the same conversation with your therapist, but it's not quite what you want to hear?
I think a lot of it may have been a similar response, that it'll be when I realize it's time, or that it is time to cut my losses. So this is, I'll know.
So this is not that dissimilar than what I just said, right? Which is
no.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean that's again. Here's the thing about this idea of delusion of uniqueness. Obviously, there's lots of people that have relationships that are challenging on multiple levels. Some are not quite in the same situation or circumstance you find yourself in, but still they're challenging. And the relationship is challenging. And the question is, am I better here with this person, or do I need to move on and find some other place to be either alone for a while or find some other partner that's more, satisfying in whatever meaningful way that occurs for you. But I think the question, if you're already seeing somebody, probably not going to make that much difference to you. But perhaps one way to think about this is, in the relationship that you have with this person, if it was to last, what's the best you can hope for in terms of what are you really looking for? In other words, what's the ideal vision of you and this other person in the future that you might aspire to and shoot for and see whether you can make it or not? And then if it's not really something you can realize at any point in time, then is there something that you're willing to settle for that's less? And when you get to that point, maybe that helps you to think through, when is it time? Because I can't answer that for you, but perhaps there's a way to provide some guidelines or, milestones where if you want to make it work and you're still at the place where you're working hard to make it work, I'd talk with your own therapist and with the person you're partnered with, about what's the best version of us to going forward together. What can we aspire to, and what do we need to do on a daily basis, really, to get there? So we enjoy most of the day together. What needs to happen in terms of this ideal circumstance? That you never achieve perfection in life, but if you aspire towards something that is relatively incredibly important in your own minds, and you're relatively successful in getting there, that usually works for people. But you have to have that vision, I think, and then actually see if you can work towards it.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the call, and I hope that does help and that you find something that is worth working towards and you're successful with it.
It does. Thank you, Michael.
I'm Chuck, and Michael called, but thank you.
I'm sorry, Chuck.
That's right. I got a brother named Michael. That's funny. Okay, Sarah.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Okay, that's probably the last call I can take. Okay, so the idea is trying to figure out, where are you with your feelings about someone or something that's going on? Where do you want to be? What is the future? What's the best version of the future? And are you willing to work towards it? Whether it was just now Sarah with the partners she has, that she's wondering whether she can stay with, or whether it was Denise with her son, and whether or not he can aspire to something that makes him feel successful in life, and he's no longer afraid to leave the room and go out and do something that's grab the world and do what you can with it to make it work for you. And what we want to have is little successes every day that we can build on. And again, life is never perfect, but you want to aspire to try and get to be the best you can. And that doesn't mean being the best you can tomorrow or next week, but being the best you can over a lifetime. And so that means there will be days when you're not perfect and days when I'm not perfect. I know that happens. But, not being too judgmental and harsh with yourself, being upset a bit with yourself when you don't show up the way you want to show up, but asking yourself anytime that you might fail at what you're trying to achieve, what can I learn from this today? And did I have to learn that again today because I did it yesterday? How do I make it something that's meaningful and lasting and sustainable? So I hope you've enjoyed the show today. The show's the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. I'm Chuck Wolf, and I'm the host. I'm on the first and second Wednesdays of each month at 12 noon on WPKN's community time, community hour from 12 noon to 1 p.m. And I enjoy being here. I really enjoy making a difference and helping people. And the work that I told you about that's going on with Tamara and her companies in the Midwest and Nebraska. They're a trucking company. They're a warehousing company. And the stuff that's happening with her people is fantastic. And I hope that you find that on LinkedIn, that conversation, that podcast that we just did. So enjoy the month. I'll be back with you the next month. And I'm on 12 to 1, the first and second Wednesdays. Take care, everybody. And thanks so much for listening. Bye-bye now.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.